Yo, how you doing, folks? Welcome to episode 144 of the Simpa Life podcast. I hope you're keeping well. Hope you've had a good week. Has it been a week? It's been about a week. I think it's 6 days. I'm trying to get back to Mondays, folks. I had a bit of an issue with my internet. Apparently, my broadband is now 10 times faster, but I don't really notice it because this computer is actually slow. So, yeah, good investment there. At least my uploads take a hell of a lot less time. So, yeah, there'll be more videos hopefully incoming soon. I'm not going to keep it too long because this might be a bit of a short one here, folks. But I did want to bring you today's guest, who will be reappearing for the third time today. They are a formulation chemist with, I suppose, it'll be nearly 25 years of experience in the hydroponics industry here in the UK. They're a prescription cannabis advocate, plant scientist, educator, and consultant. They are Dr. Callie Seaman. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm all right. How are you doing yourself, mate?
I'm not bad. I'm enjoying the fact it's getting sunny. It's getting warm. I know we always complain about the weather on this bloody podcast, but I think we're getting past our false spring, they call it, and we're into real spring, maybe. Or maybe we're going to have a double false. Who knows?
Oh, mate, but my garden's so confused, it's unbelievable. You've got stuff starting to flower, and then we had that cold snap. One of my rhubarb actually came out and it started expressing anthocyanin, which is the purple in one of the leaves, started going beautiful purple in colour. And it's because of that cold snap. It's because of that difference between day and night. And it was... the garden's really confused. Oh, we've got some tulips out. Oh, no, they're not going to open. They're not opening properly. So I've got, as I say, everything's a little bit like, oh, what's happening? But we've got sunshine here in sunny Sheffield. We've got, there's blue sky there with spatters of, aeroplane trails.
Well, whatever is in the sky, I hope people are, finding some blue sky and a bit of sunshine. You can tell we're both northern. We're chatting about the fucking weather. Let's move swiftly on then. I suppose your last visit was, I did write it down somewhere. When the hell is it? December 2021. So,
wow, was it that long ago?
Yeah, a bit of time has passed. So what have you been up to sort of since we last spoke?
Well, I've become the co-chair of the Cannabis Industry Council. That has its challenges, and hopefully I can make changes in that direction that will be beneficial to everyone. I've been over to Germany lately. That was quite interesting. Looking forward to chatting to you about that and getting your opinion on what you think's happening over there, because it was very kind of split. I mean, we met up when we were in Barcelona for... Cannabis while we were over there as well. So yeah, there's been a lot kind of happening in the last couple of years. I can't believe it's 2021 since the last time I was on there, and we're in 2024. There's just, the time is flying at the moment.
Yeah, well, I think it was effective. Oh no, wait. December 2021 is a note for something else. I've just got dates written down in a random order. I don't know when you were last. You were episode 97, however long ago that was. That's 2022. It must be 22. End of 22.
Yeah, it's well over a year. It's definitely over a year, mate.
But it's been a good bit of time. Like you say, a lot has happened. So, yeah, let's jump into my second question here, which is quite well appropriate since what you've just stated there. What is sort of happening with the Cannabis Industry Council? Obviously, you've taken up this new role. And I don't know, briefly, if you could give kind of an overview. I think most people know what the Cannabis Industry Council is, but for people that don't, if you could give them a little bit of a concise overview and potentially what you are doing and intend to do.
So the Cannabis Industry Council, the idea is to bring all of industry together. So it's not just about prescriptions and medicinal cannabis. It's not just about CBD. We've also got hemp as well. So we've got a hemp group as well. We've got CBD group. We've got prescription cannabis. We've also got looking at environment subgroups as well. We're also looking at the standards there. So we're putting papers together, and there's been some fantastic papers by one of your colleagues being put out, Guy, which I believe was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. About driving and being a prescription patient and your rights as a driver, and the fact that intoxication, the difference between being intoxicated to actually drive, unable to drive, and being able to have a prescription and the amount that is actually within the blood, which isn't an indication of intoxication, blood THC levels. So we've got a paper on that out. We've got a paper coming out that's been published on the economic values of the use of cannabis. So we're trying to bring the research together that the government is so desperately telling us that they need, and the evidence. So from whatever area, we've got an international group as well that's, looking around what's happening around the world and how their models around the world have actually worked and how they haven't worked, and what we can learn from that as well. So we're a whole array of things, and it's an industry body. We've got a students membership as well, so people who just really want to know what's happening for the networking events as well. It's a new role to me. It's the first time I've ever been a chair of an association, and a bit of a steep learning curve at times. Definitely some steep learning curves of sort of bringing people together and making sure everything is best for everyone within the industry, not just one sort of area, not just focusing on the medicinal side of things. Cannabis is so much more than just a medicine or just a building material. There's so much more to it, and that's what we're sort of trying to bring to the forefront with the Cannabis Industry Council, and bringing industry together and patients so that everyone can communicate together as well and understand the needs of each, because industry's needs and the actual things that industry needs to hear are different to the needs of a patient. So large scale production is very, very different to small scale production that many of the patients may have been used to. And it's understanding those needs and those methodologies that are involved in that, a lot of the red tape, and being able to sort of educate one another as well. And it's about bringing a unity so that we have a unified voice as opposed to individual voices.
Yeah. I have my appreciations and my qualms with the CIC, as I do with any organization. I feel slightly better with yourself at the helm, or joint at the helm. I see the need, obviously, for a kind of fragmented approach to things. The one thing that I guess frustrates me most is kind of the absence of like a legacy group in the CIC, because everything that you have mentioned there is built on good old-fashioned dealers, good old-fashioned home growers. The people that went kind of before that, I feel they're left voiceless even by these attempts to give voice to the community, because of their perceived criminality, even though the point of this surely should be to end that criminality, not to create a, frankly, middle-class pathway to participation. Do you know what I mean? It feels like there's a limitation there. And again, I understand why the CIC is limited to it, because of the disparate opinions of the parts that make up the sum total of the organization. But yeah, I guess that's my only kind of frustration with it. I think it is, as you say, a good collective voice for channeling information and kind of, let's call them demands towards, Parliament and to the kind of established systems that govern us. So I think in that sense, all power to it. I think there is a bit of an oversight. There was an anecdote somebody was telling me not that long ago. There was some product in the 1980s, and I can't remember what it was, and it was designed, conceived, marketed, and mass-produced by men, and it was for women. And the first woman that got her hands on it went, "Women don't fucking use this," and they lost everything. And they'd never consulted a woman along the way. And I can't help but feeling like the CIC not having an open area that allows for, not condoning, but allowing those conversations of what is to exist alongside this. Otherwise, the industry will build its model, and there's this huge missing piece. And go on.
I have to disagree with you, because I think I helped to stop that, because obviously coming from that side of things, I hope that I'm a voice for that as well. Looking at the international group, we are looking internationally what is happening and how models there for adult use is being set up, and no model is going to be perfect. And a lot of people you do find as well that are within the industry themselves do come from the legacy side of things and have actually moved over. I mean, that's not as apparent as you would like to see that, but I do think that voice is still there. And I don't think it's being forgotten about. The issue is it's still illegal for adult use within this country. that's not for us to debate at this point in time. But I'm hoping things will shape out better so that we can get the patients sorted first. I think there's and just an acceptance that this is a medicine and it's not just a recreational drug as well. I think we've got to position cannabis being useful for everybody, not just for people who want to get high, which there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not condoning that, but in order for us to be able to move things forwards, we've just got to position this in a different way. And I understand with the analogy that you're giving about that something was designed for women and women don't use this. I do think there are voices within there that are making sure that they are being thought about. Me being one of them. And hopefully I can prove you wrong. Yeah, I hope I prove you wrong.
I challenge you to do so, and I hope so, because part of me, it feels like, again, something you'll probably understand here being Northern, is kind of the class betrayal element. That is, you literally use the words of, they've transitioned over. That to me feels a betrayal. I have been in this space, but I will never abandon the legacy culture because it is first and foremost what I am. I do not want to take a job or a role within this space because it would feel disingenuous, because then that feels to me predicated on the fact of the continual criminalization. And I agree with the statement, and it's the disagreements, the pleasant ones, obviously, that me and Clark French from UPA have had over the years, that if you don't sort out the legacy space, you are never going to fix your medical, because everybody is going to be piling into that to get the protection of the pot. And, oh, yes, doctor, I've got a headache. Oh, yes, doctor, I've got anxiety and I've got depression. And it skews the numbers, it skews the statistics. And I think a lot of the people, the metric of this is measured on is money. And so as long as the patient number goes up and the money goes up, the industry is a success. But then when we see 40,000 versus the estimated 1.8 million, we have a discrepancy there. And we can either wait at this rate, it might be 2050 by the time we channel the majority of cannabis consumers through, if you want to go through that. And I just think, what would we do? Wait till 2050 while there's still people getting raided, there's still home growers getting targeted, there's still patients that prefer and actually get more medicinal benefit from smoking it, not having protection, people losing licenses, children, houses, opportunities, etc. I feel like the sentiment is correct, but there has to be a rational understanding that if we're all in water and you put a life raft down and you write medical only, we're going to all fight to get on that life raft. Whereas if we just go with enough boats, we can get everybody out of the water. And then what happens is the bespoke medications and everything else will be correct. So then I can't see any children gaming the system with epilepsy, like parents with their kids, that's not going to be a thing. But I know so many people that have air quotes got depression so that they can get their script. And they know they're gaming the system. Their doctors know they're gaming the system, but they're doing it to feel secure. And it feels like it's disingenuous, and it bothers me, because I want to live in a world where we don't have to lie about cannabis. We don't have to omit or what Thailand's potentially going to do, and just always remember, oops, it's medicinal. I didn't mean to accidentally get high. Sorry, I'm getting medicated. Yeah, look, I scraped my knee earlier, so this is medical. Yeah, we're good. It just feels wrong, and I feel if there isn't that voice as part of it, it's going to get kind of missed. And to as you wanted to sort of talk about Germany or these other models, I think a lot of other places, it's almost like tokenism. Like I spoke of with Dan Herrell last week, that certain legacy people kind of get championed and put in a position, and they get twisted and morphed into championing for things that are for the betterment of that corporation and their market share and the industry they want to create, rather than actually lifting up all of the other people that are still criminalized or in some way have their lives lessened as a consequence of prohibition. There's a question in there somewhere.
Yeah, it's the issue is it's the Cannabis Industry Council. At the moment, the industry here in the UK, within the law, will only allow prescription. And that is where we've got to really focus our attentions to. And I agree. I don't want to see that disappear, but we've also got to look at the other side as well. There's many patients who would benefit from this who don't want to be part of the legacy side. I mean, I'm not saying we should forget that at all. And we've got to be open to everybody's needs and everybody's wants as well.
Is it not that their needs are already being met, though? if they're the ones that can go and get the scripts and drive and, vape wherever they like and have, sorry, frankly, a sense of entitlement that I see from quite a lot of them, does that not in some way create further the divide rather than bringing that unity together? I openly smoke. I'm a prescription holder. I would argue that, if my clinic wants to be a dick, this isn't your cannabis, so I'm not breaking the terms of my prescription. Do you know what I mean? It's all of these nuances and things that people have to kind of jump through for their life to be safe. And then when they're safe, it's, I don't know, philosophy, you turn around, you pull the next guy up. But it just feels like we're not pulling the next guy up. It feels like their freedom is predicated on keeping the next guy down.
I'm sorry you feel that way, because we've got to start somewhere. We really have got to start somewhere. And where we're starting at the moment is the first of getting the acceptance of getting rid of the stigma of this. And that is one of the most difficult things. There's still a lot of stigma associated with it. There's still a lot of people who do not believe this is a medicine. I mean, I don't know if you're aware that there were leaflets dropped in South Wales, where leaflets were actually dropped to letterboxes that were from pre-2018, asking people if they're smelling cannabis to call the police. Mm-hmm. And, grass your neighbour up, essentially, that's still putting out. So there's still police who don't know that cannabis is available on prescription, that they think it's all illegal.
But that's still the problem, is that the vast majority of cannabis, 98, 99% of all of the cannabis isn't prescription. And this new system of literally, smell, it was 6 years in this November. Mm-hmm. And all I'm just thinking is, if we have to wait on these numbers more, how many more of my friends are going to prison? How much more paranoia do I have to live on? Do others have to live on for being self-sufficient, for taking autonomy of their healthcare, when for 6 years, apparently it's been lawful? It's these systems, it doesn't feel designed to represent the patients. For a certain bunch of patients, yes. The ones that want to continue to have the stigma and go, skunk, Schedule 1 cannabis people. Like, no offense, but fuck you. You have everything that you have now because of the suffering of my people and the legacy culture, because we went to prison, because we've taken the risks. All the scientific data, all of the anecdotal data, everything came from people unlawfully smoking cannabis. And yeah, they can have this thing, and that's fair. But then that should trickle down, to borrow a phrase from old broken economics, to the other people that have some form of discretion, whereas it feels now it's going worse. And then instead of it going, patients are now getting pulled over and they're losing their licenses and then don't know how to deal with it. Yes, we're focusing on that, but we're not drawing to the hypocrisy. Why does a piece of paper make that guy being stoned lawful and that guy not? Where's the science? Where's the rationale? So it feels like the more we do this just patients, we have to skew our vision and get less and less aware of the rest of the reality. And we wonder why then there's still going to be all these problems. And I'm not saying that it has to be rec first. That's not what I'm arguing. I'm just saying that unless you have a rec head, to borrow a phrase, in that room kind of going, yeah, but what about? Because then there'll still be all these other people. And I can understand the police, because they're looking at it and it's black and white to them. But so it's when it's in that magic pot, it's fine. But when it's not in the magic pot, it's not fine. So we've got to look out for the magic pot. But there's a magic card as well. Okay, so we've got to play the magic card. But then there's magic pieces of paper. And do you know what I mean? It's the things are so convoluted and broken. If cannabis can be medicine, it should be medicine for all. That's my argument. I understand a lot of people get I'm worried about that, but the industry would still be dominant. Damn it would be far more dominant and successful if it got us out of the way, Of course. Can I
ask you a question? Have you worked in a grow shop?
No, I've considered it a few times.
Right. And have you met some of the people who are involved within this industry?
In hydro?
Yeah. Well, in not in hydro, within the illegal cannabis space.
Yes.
Some of the gangs that are involved.
Yeah.
I mean, the big array of that. And there's some nasty people. Yeah. And that is what we need to make sure isn't happening. A system needs putting together. We need to come up with an idea. But at this moment in time, I think we need to get the the acceptance of this as being a medicine to start off with. I think that's where we've really got to start. And if we don't, we are going to end up in a real mess that is being seen in other countries. A real mess. And
I agree, but we could go the other way, and then it'll be like opioids. So 1800s, now let's go fucking hit the pipe, lads. Let's go down. You know, you go to the pub, you fucking have some hash and opium mix and whatever else. Within 100 years, carfentanil is like what, 20,000 times more potent than just smoking opium. That's what happened under the medicalization of opium and opioids and the creation of all of that, and it being taken out of the hands of people that just been able to use a benign plant and a plant medicine. That's the trajectory I see cannabis, is like HHC times 50. It's going to be like, oh yeah, we've created a novel THC compound that's 17,000 times stronger, and you need just one dot, and it works very good for manufacturing, and it allows them to continue to criminalize the plants and everything that we do. I just don't see a ceasefire to the war on drugs of the cannabis element until there is this acknowledgement that it can't both be this wonderful medicine that kids are allowed to be high on THC, yet it's this skunk devil that turns everybody crazy and is going to make you rape people and rob people. Like, do you know what I mean? The hypocrisy in that narrative, to watch like the Daily Express be like, or whatever paper, be like, you know, sinful cannabis drug, you know, pothead terrorists, as they tried to do, you know, and get the Peter Hitchens argument of like hashish and cannabis causing like radical Islamic extremism. And then on the next page, literally be like, wonder drug saves child, and it's a wonderful middle class fluff piece of, oh, how good and how lovely. That is what is wrong with this, is that hypocrisy. Most people see that and they will never take serious any of it. So what they see is what I see: middle class capitalists capitalizing, abusing children, abusing vulnerable people to create a system of monetization. Because if we crash the cost of cannabis, there wouldn't be any gangs or drug dealers. They'd move into the other things. Anything you prohibit, you guarantee a black market on. Whereas if cannabis was benign and cost like tobacco, 30 grams for like 20 quid, do you really think you'd have gangs doing the grows?
Yeah, I do. Sorry, I do. I still think it'll exist. Still don't think that will disappear at all.
Yeah.
I don't think it will solve everything. I don't quite know what to say in response, because I know there's a lot of people who are working hard to try and get things in the right direction and don't want to war, and they don't want to, you know, not include everyone. I know there's a lot of people, and I think you're lumping a lot of us into all of that. And
I'm speaking of the collective institution, not the individuals. And I guess I'm maybe doing my audience a disservice here because they don't know to the level of which we debate quite often here. It feels like we may have skipped straight into the middle of an ongoing conversation here. So for clarity's sake, yeah, I'm not attacking all of the individuals. What I'm seeing is the unintended trajectory in which it is going, and I feel that is because of, to use my analogy, there isn't a woman in the room being asked the question of, will you use this? And I feel like if the lack of inclusion, no matter how big or grand or great the system and how good its intentions, it will always alienate and create a resentment in a group of people that, well, we're used to it and we're quite anti-authoritarian, quite anti-establishment, and we're going to choose to never participate in your thing unless we feel welcome to it. So yeah, for clarity's sake, I'm not having a go at ad hominem attacking the individuals involved. I truly believe the vast majority of the people I've met in this space are well-intentioned. But I think that, you know, money corrupts, and I think, you know, it's security and success often get intertwined, and people chasing, you know, the comfort of their family and buying homes and start successful businesses, you can, like I said, end up running down a narrower road. So yeah, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to clarify.
I understand your frustration, Simpa, and we've spoke about and talked a lot about it. I do 100% understand. And I wish I had a magic wand. I genuinely do wish I had a magic wand and could solve it all. I'm working in the kind of the fence that I can work in, and what is possible, and what we can achieve, and what is achievable, what's realistically achievable. I mean, I never actually thought we'd see Germany doing what it's doing. I was gobsmacked at that. So there is hope for this country, I believe. I believe there is hope. It may take many years. And having that right model in place and putting that forwards is a way, but it's a way off, and we've got to look what's happened around the world to try and learn from that. I mean, Canada is not in a better place. I mean, we're seeing a lot of patients suffering there, and that actually what happened with the opening up of the recreational side, we saw a reduction in actual research for children. We work with Medcan Family Foundation. We work with 4C, not 4C Labs, 4C4T. C4T. This is a research group that's doing on pediatric epilepsy, and they're looking, and the amount of funding that is coming into them has reduced massively. And the interest in that area, because all of the companies that were doing cannabis and going to help all the children moved over to recreational where the money was being made. We can't have a repeat of that. We really can't.
And I agree. And I think that the thing that's missed, I mean, bless, I know you're listening, Winston. Shout out to you and the crew of the original coffee shop guys, you know, and Colin Davies and fucking Chris Baldwin and Jeff Ditchfield and all the crew of that era. Majority of their coffee shops ran on a subsidization model. The people that were recreational users or people who didn't self-identify as some way of medical users paid a premium rate on their cannabis or a higher rate to subsidize a cheaper access for the medicinal. That was always the compassion model, even in California and whatever else, when there was diversion. I'm not going to grass too many people up in the 215 era, but there was diversion that was deliberately allowed out to fund other patient access. And it was, again, kind of a discretionary thing in some of the counties. Some of the cops fucking knew about it. They knew that there was weed being sold, but they saw the people that were benefiting from it, and the money stayed in that area. Whereas, yeah, Canada is kind of screwed up. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at, there's a document that came out recently. I'm trying to figure out where the date is on it. This is a long title, folks. I will include it in the link below. A focus on adolescent substance use in Europe, Central Asia and Canada. Health behavior in school-age children. International Report 2021-22 Survey Volume 3. This is from the World Health Organization. They found that teenage girls or 15-year-old girls in Canada are smoking cannabis at a rate of 25%. It's the highest in all of the areas. I think it was 44 countries they looked at. The 15-year-old boys were Scottish. They had the highest rate for boys, and that was, I think, 23%. But there is a thing, basically, I'm going to use that as a jumping off point to. I think California have just announced they seized $54 million worth of illicit cannabis in Q1 of this year so far. And it's basically, again, we can look at the successes of these legal and decrim systems and whatever else, but we also have to look at the consequences. Like Oregon have just recriminalized all drugs as a consequence of diversion of funds. So the same thing, like I said, with Canada, it should have been this thing, okay, we're going to go rec, yeah, but then we protect the medical. Even as someone who has a prescription and gets legitimate benefit from it, if you leave me alone to fucking grow, I would even pay a little fucking gestural tax to you, a little license. If I knew 100% of that shit, minus admin costs, was subsidizing someone who couldn't grow their own, who couldn't access their own. Anyone with a fucking integrity would. And I agree, the gangs are the same, whether they're in tracksuits or business suits. And again, not to offend anybody, but what I mean by that is their intention. It's about capturing markets. It's about conquering their enemies. It's about increasing the profits. It's about finding ways to slash and create efficiencies. It's all the same game. The difference is that one group are allowed to succeed and the other are criminalized. And that's what, again, I see as these lines of hypocrisy. Whereas if there was a level playing field created, all of that money, a little slice could come off and help those kids with epilepsy. So the parents don't have to go out. So they're not remortgaging fucking homes. There was an article, I only know that I saw the date, but it was released the 23rd. Can't remember the name of the woman, but it was literally saying she's just sold a house this year to continue.
I know which article you're talking about.
Yeah.
We hear these stories constantly.
I could pay for that, not personally out of my pockets right now, but as part of a system of 1.8 million people. If you then go higher and go, okay, there's probably around 3 million people, if not more, regularly consume cannabis.
Maybe you need to start banging this drum more, that you are willing to do this, because the understanding, the perception of we're
selfish, we're greedy dealers.
No, I think that's not the I think there is. This is a very, very difficult area of what how we actually move forwards with it, and one of the biggest pieces of feedback and is just understanding, and there's been some surveys done of around with the cannabis naive people who are not involved with the industry whatsoever, and their perception of all of this and understanding their perception, and part of this problem is moving that perception that the average stoner isn't somebody who is sitting around doing nothing and not going to work. And that, again, I think has to be tackled first, and it has to be one step at a time to move that kind of further forwards.
I agree. And the evolution of that to me is then, because I know many people who are putting in work in a grow room. They're still making money. They're paying more tax on their endeavors than most of the corporations in this country. They're paying tax on their newts, their feeds, their seeds, their electric, because they're doing it properly. They're paying for their water properly. Do you know what I mean? They're paying their rent, their council tax. They are contributing to their community and growing cannabis, and yes, selling cannabis, but then they're giving people access to quality cannabis, and they're making a living from that. I would say that is still work. They are still paying tax into that system. And if the system then wants to come in and figure out, it's VAT and whatever else, that's fair once we get to that commercial point. But I still think there's still then the thing of tomatoes. I could put up a grow tent in my living room and grow a shitload of tomatoes in the house and then just bugger off to a car boot sale and sell them. And there is no restriction, there's no limitation or issue there. And I think, again, it has to be this spectrum of what is the language. So what are we legalizing? Which under the old parlance would mean the end of criminalization. But no, that's not what neo-legalization is. That's keeping the law as is and creating a new set of laws that protect the industry. Like if we actually decriminalize cannabis, like if all the end of criminalization of cannabis occurs, there are no cannabis offenses. So how is there illicit cannabis? How is there unlawful cannabis? There just isn't. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think that's the limitations of the systems around the world, is all it can see is the tax, the control, the money. Whereas if it really lets it go and then creates that taxed, regulated commercial industry, the innovation would be massive. And I think bigger than that, as I made the point of with Uncle Stoner a few weeks ago, our culture being represented. Think of what happened in the arts, in music, in fucking written literature and all of it, when homosexuals were allowed to participate in society. Once we changed the laws and shit and they were allowed to produce art. Think of your average fucking play, theatre show, without this celebration of queer culture. Imagine what happens if we could celebrate cannabis culture in the same way, not have to silence us and go, you're allowed through this one door, and you go, oh, I just vape and I only this and I'm only do this. Like, no, unbridled, unashamed pride. That is what I want to see. And that is twinned with the end of all criminalization. If you consume cannabis, I don't care what your politics are, who you are, you shouldn't be demonized for that. If you're a dickhead, yeah, and call you a dickhead and treat you as such. If you break another law, you're a criminal. That's your fault. But for the cannabis thing, it can't be fine for one and not for the other. That's my whole thesis on all of this, is anything that we do that is incremental, unless it pays homage and honors the other and helps bring it up in some way, all it's going to do is create a narrative that goes. And the reason the cannabis naive people are so confused about this is, like I said before, one news article says, gang of teenagers stab each other to death, illegal immigrants and human trafficking and, do you know what I mean, funding terrorists, miracle drug. Do you know what I mean? It's prohibition is what gives these elements. Cannabis didn't do jack shit. That cannabis plant wasn't sat there going, I'm going to fund terrorists, yeah, let's blow up some buildings. And there's a cannabis plant sat in a greenhouse going, I'm going to save children's lives. The plant's got nothing to it, you know what I mean? It's what we do with it. And I know, again, I'm an idealist and I'm a bit of an extremist, but I believe that that's the world that we could have. And I know we have to go through these incremental steps of legalization and whatever, but I just hope that I'm not alone once the world moves through legalization. And I'm still going, yeah, people are still going to prison. Yeah, why can't I carry 1 more gram than they're allowed? Yeah, why can't I smoke it there but not there? Do you know what I mean? Any restrictions on the individual, I think, are just
I think ridiculous. We do also need to think about being, not the word polite, it's the wrong word, polite, thoughtful to others. I don't think we should be consuming on the tube. I think we should be thinking about those around us. And I think it's very selfish to do it in a confined area where people don't want to consume it. What about those who don't want to be part of this? We can't just, say that, well, it's our right to do this, our right because we've got a prescription. We do need to think about everybody around us as well, and not just think about ourselves. And I think that we do need to be making sure, but then creating these divisions. That article that you and those articles that you're talking about is creating division between people who want the same thing. Essentially, we all want the same thing. We all want to be able to consume cannabis without being criminals for whatever reason. That's, everybody wants the same thing. The industry wants the industry to thrive so that they can then feed their family. They can then give jobs to more people. And actually create that. I mean, a lot of these companies as well, ones that I've worked with, do look after their employees more better than any big company like, GlaxoSmithKline or Wilkinson's. I mean, Wilkinson's is gone now, but your big kind of companies like that and corporations, I'm sorry, these smaller companies that I've worked for look after their employees far, far more. And this industry is, far fairer, I think, than the big corporate world. So I think for all the faults that you're talking about and some of the unfairness, I think there is a better culture within the cannabis industry. I think there's a lot more about sharing the profits within companies, so that when companies are within profit, they share that with here at Aqua Labs, that's what we do. And when we are in profit, we make sure that all of our employees, they get bonuses around that, and then we make sure we look after everyone. And I know many other companies do as well. And
I'm not being a dick here. Maybe it is because we have such a personal affinity and we talk so much about this same subject. My brain instantly was going, yeah, but I know like commercial dudes, like there's an Instagram account of a lad in London, what is it? Your crop's gone or something. And they rob crops and shit, man. They're fucking mental cases. And they share videos from like in the community. And there was one guy and there's a dude turned up and he's basically brought crates of beer for the guys that he's trafficked into a fucking house. And so they're looking after their employees. My brain is just making that comparison. I'm working out as I go. I'm not saying that's
I can't tell you the stories I could tell you from the grow shop days 10 years ago. And there's things would curl your toes, mate.
Oh God, no, God! I've been in this space long enough. Look, I'm trying to put that extreme over here is in the same way I'm trying to put the corporate extreme over there, and just deal with the people that are well intentioned, as we were describing, sort of in the bell curve of this sort of experience on the line of lawful and unlawful. What I'm then seeing, there's several things I can't fucking speak of because they're ongoing lawsuits. I mean, I'm not involved in the lawsuit, but can I comment on it? I'm not going to muddy the water because I want the individuals involved to be on the podcast in the not too distant future. But there are several major lawsuits. I mean, I think Raw's just settled theirs, for example. There's some unbelievable business practices that are going on of people that are shutting down brands, that are buying to mothball, that are doing really dodgy things to undercut other, even we know this in the clinic space and that in the UK. Some quite underhanded business tactics. So it's just the same sort of exists on both sides. And granted, the violence is the main issue with this. If they were just like cutting their bonuses or whatever to motivate them, that's very different than trafficking somebody and is potentially vulnerable and whatever else. But my point, I still feel that both of those extremes can exist because the middle aren't free. Like if cannabis was so benign that you could grow 4 plants in your back garden and no one would think to jump over the fence and nick it because they've got 4 plants in their garden or 10 plants, or it's so abundant that it doesn't have a value to the average individual almost. That is the only way that I see the end of criminalization, because for corporate systems to maintain monopolies, there has to be arbitrary limitations. And this brings us on wonderfully to talk about Germany and Malta and other sort of systems, which was something that we both wanted to discuss. So yeah, we're happy to kind of leave that debate there. I think we're both agreed. Some bad people on both sides, the good intention for the vast of the majority, and more conversations need to be had.
Oh, look, this debate does need to carry on. Not right now. And I don't disagree with anything you're saying. I think I live in a less idealistic world.
I'm a radical. I will live in the gutter. You fuck me, I will burn it down and I will paint myself with the ashes. Yeah, I recognize that. I'm a lifer.
Yeah. I'm living in the reality of, right, what can we actually achieve? What can we actually achieve at this point in time? And how do we need to get to that point? And it isn't going to happen all of a sudden by exploding like Thailand. I mean, bringing it on to other sort of countries, how Thailand's gone about it. And it's just a mess over there as well. It's just absolutely exploded. But then you look at Malta, which have come up with a path, and Germany and the way that they're going to model that hopefully in a year's time we'll have some results from.
Yeah, so there's an interesting discrepancy in the laws of comparing sort of Malta and Germany. So quickly for the audience that may not be aware, Malta's sort of, how the hell do you it's a quasi decriminalization model, I suppose. It's a quasi de jure decriminalization model, I think, is the ultimate proper way of describing it. That came into effect on December 2021. Its first club opened in February 2024. That will be this year. Malta is different from Germany in that the possession limit is 7 grams. You can buy up to 7 grams from a club. It's capped similar to Germany at 50 grams a month. Smoking is prohibited in public anywhere. It's a €235 fine, or that lifts up to €500 if it is near a child. They haven't given the distance, as far as I can see, how far away from a child you need to be. Up to 28 grams, or so between 7 and 28 grams, will result in being taken before a tribunal, quite similar to the Portuguese system that was sort of initiated, though I'm not sure. I need to check in on the Portuguese, see if that's still going or if it's been overwhelmed. They can request expungement, which is something the Germans I haven't seen as well. So if low level possession under an ounce, you can basically write a letter and you should have a conviction lifted. The clubs are also limited to 500 in both regions. Home grow is limited to 4 plants per household. It doesn't say if that's per year or whether that's per cycle, so we're not sure. I'm not sure on that.
I think that's per cycle, as I understood in Germany. And
Germany's written per year. Like it was expressed per year, but Malta, I haven't seen whether it's expressed or not. But the interesting thing is Malta have followed the Germans. You can have 4 plants at home, but no more than 50 grams of cannabis. So I don't know quite how that works. And again, how they would enforce this. This is the thing that if there's arbitrary limitations and restrictions for the vast majority of people, that's fine. But they will use that as the precursor to target the people that they don't like. Do you know what I'm saying? You might be an activist talking a bit too loud and they know you've got 5 plants instead of 4. So they can come do you know what I mean?
You brought a good point up here, and which comes up again is how is things policed? And I think maybe a lot of the kind of hesitation as well is the system that needs putting into place. And the people, I mean, at the moment, in order to obtain a legal cultivation license in the UK, you go by the Home Office. Now, it's the same department that deals with firearm applications and licensing as well. And there are very few people, and if you've ever been involved in actually applying for one of these license, the Home Office do not move at any great speed. Respondence is not at a great pace. Feedback is not great. It's like trying to get blood out of a stone to move things forwards. And then eventually things do start to move forwards. Mm-hmm. So that whole sort of side of things needs putting into place. And how do we fund that as well? Where does it start? We kind of end up a little bit in the chicken and egg situation is, how do we get the funds in to be able to do that? And then we've got all of those people, and this came up in Germany as well. What about those who have already been convicted for this and cannabis offences only? Do we just let them all out? Mm-hmm. Is that just then? But how do we then process that through the system? How does that come about? And it would be great, as I say, magic wand, sort everything out. Everybody who had been locked up had been. But are they going to start then looking at wanting, sorry, my brain's gone a bit numb.
Compensation?
That's the word. That's the word. Mm. That creates a whole issue as well.
Well, this is one of the arguments that's been put forward in scholastic and legal circles, is that the reason that we're choosing this legalization route rather than removing kind of previous laws is exactly that, is the liability of governments. So in the UK, when we ripped up the criminalization of homosexuality, that basically set forth a pathway for the government to be responsible to it, as it did I can't remember the year, but it was many decades later, made a public apology for the criminalization and the lives kind of ruined. And they obviously gave a public apology. Jesus Christ, I think not that long ago. It was like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, to Alan Turing, who they chemically castrated after the fucking Second World War. Like, it's justice is going to come inevitably, but I don't think it's fair that there should be a multi-trillion-dollar international cabal and all this industry when the governments haven't acknowledged the wrong. Do you know what I mean? And I think so. The approach that I want to see is global elements come together and let's fucking take on the UN, man. There are three fucking documents that we need to amend: the 61 Convention, the 71 Convention, and the 88 Convention. If we want international trade, we could leave the 88 Convention theoretically. But if we amend those conventions and we flip the script, for me, we would decriminalize, or in the old parlance, legalize cannabis across the board, and then start putting pressure on countries that criminalize cannabis the same way we do with elements that demonize like gay rights, or that don't follow environmental protocols, or things like this. You know, we use sanctions, we use other forms of international governance to, I don't want to say force compliance. I don't want to sound like an authoritarian. I'm very not fucking authoritarian. But I think while these mechanisms exist, this could be for the betterment of all nations. If you want to talk about carbon sequestration, cannabis is the best thing on the fucking planet. Research and development, if instead of being in a couple of labs in America and China and here and there, was everywhere in every bedroom, we would advance. If it was grown in every curbside, it demands to be unrestricted. It's literally, as Jack Herrer, you know, said that, I mean, to paraphrase him, you know, it doesn't know if cannabis will save the world, but it's the only fucking thing at this point that can. Like, in terms of its multi-versatile resource, and any of these artificial restrictions and limitations placate the movement for freedom, because everyone goes, yeah, we've got 25 grams. Yeah, we've got 25 grams. But then it's not going to take until a few years till one of them gets caught out with 28. What happens to Dave when he gets, I don't know what a German Dave, guys, who is Dave in Germany? This is in the name equivalency. Hans? I don't know. I don't know my German names that very well. But anyway, so if they get caught out, like I said, with 28 grams, what happens when the police knock on his door and he's got 4 plants? What happens if he gets stopped and it's in the wrong part of the car and they've considered that trafficking? You know, any of these limitations, we don't need to think about them. Yeah, you don't need to think about them because they don't impact the industry. You make your profits anyway. They affect people's lives. So there has to be a champion, a voice in all spaces. And I worry, as Dan Herrer pointed out last week, what if the reason that Germany has done what they've done is to stop the Germans demanding? What if the next country that rises does the same thing? Because it seems to be that it's industry that lobbies government and moves it forward. It's not the people. The people then get invited by the industry. Come co-sign our thing. We'll put your logo on here. We'll you know, talk and gesture, and we'll placate to a few of your demands with no offense. And I'm not saying that you're the one doing this, but with exactly the same sentiment. We have to do what we can get away with. And I'm getting a bit, and I'm just, maybe I'm.
But getting angry at industry isn't going to solve it either, is it?
No, of course. I'm not angry as much at the industry. I'm angry at the people. I'm angry at my own people here. That they just sat on arse going 2 more years, 5 more years. I've been here in 2 to 5 years for fucking 15 years. Like, things will move forward when we conglomerate together. Again, I don't know what that looks like, but I know it has to be a fight for the people, by the people. Industry can put money in and we'll fucking need that money. But our demands should only be for us. We shouldn't give a fuck what the rest of y'all look like. You're going to do it anyway. But there needs to be a movement truly championing for the voices of the voiceless.
And you're using words like demands. Demands don't go far.
But we have human rights. They're in violation of many international treaties against us. The law is wrong. It is inhumane. It is immoral. How can we not be angry and outraged?
Because if you want to move things forwards, saying please works better, I found.
We've been saying please for 60 odd years, and what has that got most of us? I get what you're saying, I do. And I've grown a lot. You've seen me change over the years. I'm not always angry. I am in this conversation, I guess, presenting on this, I articulate my arguments, my conversations. I communicate with a lot of people. I network. I try to, you know, move discourse forward in an amicable, meaningful way. But I can't help but I am pushed forward by that fire, by that rage, because it is the injustice that motivates me most. It is the hypocrisy. And I will, as I have, support patient groups. I will, as I have, support industry. I will, as I have, I hate the fucking word, I support hemp industries. I will support, you know, CBD or whatever aspect I will give my support to, but I will also give my criticism for. And there are a lot of people, you are one of them, that I respect in these spaces that will have these conversations with me, because I know even if we can have these disagreements, I know my voice comes into your head in those meetings, and it's like, simple, and it comes out, and it affects the discourse in a meaningful way, and that's all I ever want to see is just, like I said, the people who are not interested in opening shops or businesses or cafes or whatever, their freedom to be maximized, their opportunity to participate, even if they choose not to be as valid and as equal as the guy with 10 million investment from Canada or whatever.
I think we've got to also look at compromise as well. And just, I think the difference between myself and you is I'm more willing to compromise as well. I'm more willing to sort of say, well, you know, this is the rules. I've always been a rule follower. I've always been the good girl in the back of the class, you know, sit down doing the work. And that's how I was. I struggle. And I think I've said to you, you scared the shit out of me when I first met you because you were so forthright. And so, you know, and I couldn't cope with that. And I found that it doesn't get me further forwards being like that. I found that I think both of the methods are needed and both voices are very, very much needed. And I want to hopefully, you know, be able to make sure that the whole of the cannabis community, not the industry, the community as well has a voice, be that patients, be that everybody gets listened to. I can't promise that I can change everything that will be great for everybody, but I listen and I take it on board and not necessarily have the answer there and then, but do my best to make sure that everybody's voice is heard and that it is valid and that it is being thought about. And we're not always going to get what we want. But hopefully that this Germany moving in this direction will move, you know, have this ripple effect across Europe and things will change everywhere and the issues will come up and those, you know, those problems will be solved and models can be put into place that will help to stop those kind of the money going to gangs which are organized in many, many other crimes, and they are. There is.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry I can't talk more about that because but I've seen it firsthand. I have, and I can talk about it because I've seen the variety of different growers that there are, and there are a vast variety. It's not just, you know, people with dreads or people in tracksuits. There's people in suits. There's builders. There's grannies. There's, you know, it's every walk of life is doing this.
Yeah.
And I hope I can make sure that voice is heard. It's not easy, but there has to be compromise in there as well. There has to be, all sides have to compromise. And
I think they should compromise on the order, but not the destination. The destination should be the true ubiquitous ending of all cannabis-related offence criminalisation for any individual around the world. A child shouldn't get wrong for it. In the city, like all these models in Canada where an 18-year-old can be prosecuted, or an 18-year-old can be prosecuted. These are absurdities. Like there should be no criminalisation to the individual. Kid gets caught with alcohol, cannabis, you take it off them the same way we do with alcohol. You pour it down the drain. At worst, the cops ring the parents if the kid's drunk and take them home. Do you know what I mean? The parent tell the parent. Like it should be community regulation. It has to be taken into consideration because we've been doing that for decades. I think there has to be a difference between organized gangs and that kind of very loose language and collectives of individuals that are seeking to survive austerity and, frankly, a class war in this country. There's difference. Do you know what I mean? And I think exactly the people that are dealing just growing and just in cannabis, that is a very different thing than drug dealing. That is a very different thing than being a criminal. And this is why, again, and I'll say this, I took some flack by people when I made the point about stealing electric. I'm not going to make the moral judgment of what I think of you, but I believe that theft is wrong, even if theft of a corporation in like that. I mean, we can argue again the whole thing of stealing bread to feed your family, extreme circumstances, but I can't see how you can equate those two things. get the investment money, spend the money in the electric, grow the crop, sell some of your crop, use that money to pay the electric. Keeps you under the board, keeps you happy. The electric companies are happy to look at you going, yeah, he's growing 12-12. Oh, he's 18-6 now. Do you know what I mean? They can watch that, but they don't give a shit because you're giving them money. If you suddenly don't give them money, it's a pay-to-play world out there, folks. And again, I see what you're saying, but like for the end destination is where we all agree. I will travel to the stations. I'll read me book between and I'll occupy myself on the train. And I'll look out the window and I'll speak when I can and I'll be relevant where it's relevant. But I'm riding to the end of the track and I don't want to be alone when I get there because we'll never meet that destination. If everyone gets off on that final stop and goes, oh, it's fine. And I'm like, yeah, but there's still this small group of people that are criminalized. There has to still be that fight. And I hope as we get more victories, we get more allies, not less. Do you know what I mean? Because then their success is predicated on the denial of the freedom of others. And that is repugnant to me. And I don't want to shit on the industry. I don't want to shit on the movement. Like I said, it's difficult. I'm struggling, as you can see, with these feelings because I want the liberation. And I understand that you need to show the models and do this and do that and do that and do that. But at every conversation, they have to go, yeah, but we're doing it for these people back here. Yeah, you're getting rich now and you can afford your mortgages and you can go on holiday and you can go to all the expos and you can do all the wonderful things you're doing.
Do you actually think many cannabis companies in this country are making any money?
Oh, not in this country, but the big boys that are paying for it, waiting to buy them out are the boys waiting for the licenses who actually funded this shit. Yeah, most of the companies in the country now are set up to fill or set up to be bought out within 2 or 3 years. They are not lifers. They are here to facilitate bringing in the international cartels in the same way I believe that Germany is going to fall and falter and become corporates running the clubs and providing for the clubs. That's where I think that's going. I think at least Malta wrote into their law that the clubs can't be corporations.
I know they can't be not-for-profit in Germany. It has to be not-for-profit.
Not-for-profit is a very interpretable neoliberal term. In legalese, it can mean many different things. There can be a lot of money, and that money could be used into research and development and other things. And that's as the law stands now. And we can see how quick Thailand, like you said, is going to switch up, and what that's going to then look like. And for most people, it'll just become a linguistics trick. Yeah, it's medicinal. If they don't put in the license infrastructure and it's all about the language, then that's what they're going to try and cut down on. But they're going to end, and it's whack-a-mole. And they're going to just keep going through the same problems that every system will go through until hopefully there's a collective realization in this world, hopefully while I'm alive and still have some fucking hair on my head. God, I'm graying quite badly. The war is over. That I can figure out what the fuck I want to do with my life. That I can stop, if I want to, stop writing, stop worrying, stop reading, stop researching, stop being obsessed with this, like the mouse is of the cat. Do you know what I mean? I feel this ever invasive predator, and I don't want to yield through lying or manipulating my position to feel safe. That's why I am so public. Is I feel that's the only thing that gives me some safety. I know it's a paradox, but hey, it works in my head.
It's the way we communicate with those who are changing the law as well, and we have to, I was in Parliament last week, and the time that the MPs have got to take this in is tiny, and they are literally in and out and on to the next subject. We've got to simplify the message more. It's got to be in the way that it's understandable, which I know is frustrating for you because this is a slight parallel to this. I can remember first coming as a scientist and then starting Aqualabs and all of that, and being at loggerheads with marketers and not understand why we need to spend all this money on marketing. And you can have the world's greatest product, but if your marketing's not right, it ain't going anywhere. And that is the world we live in, unfortunately. That is what we live in. And everything has to be marketed in a particular way in order to be able to get it to move forwards. Now, being angry is a marketing way. It will put people off straight away. It's trying to communicate this in a way that is easy to understand, that all bases are covered, that the solutions to the issues that could come up and the concerns are there as well, but is communicated in a way that is palatable as well. And I know, and I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but it's the only way I can see things will move forwards.
I mean,
you've got scabbard fly, haven't you? Fungus gnats.
No, it's a big house fly. I think it's because I've got some bananas dying in the kitchen. I might make some banana bread later. A bit of an insight into my personal life, folks. Yeah. So obviously, aware of the time, we'll sort of wrap. So I get what you're saying, and this is again the thing I respect about our conversations is we both can understand each other, but we don't have to alter our positions. And I appreciate that we've clarified further for the fact that obviously the continuity of this being a conversation for the public. And yeah, we'll get you back on and continue this sort of as we go. But in the meantime, let's do a couple of quick fires if that's all right. And I'll just take 5 minutes of your time.
Go for it.
You actually kind of told us at the start though. So yeah, what you growing in the greenhouse, love?
Oh, in my greenhouse at the moment, I have got an angel's trumpet. At the moment, that's quite an interesting plant. I've also got some cacti, padron peppers. I've gone flowers this year, actually. I've wanted flowers in my garden instead, so I've got loads of those. Bustles galore, and cauliflowers. So they're getting planted out in the raised bed that I've got in the middle of my garden. But it's just, I love getting the hands in the muck. I mean, we've not... What's something else, and we were discussing this the other day, that the fact that actually gardening is therapy in itself. Getting your hand in those muck, in that muck, planting your plants, seeing it grow, creating that. And then when you actually harvest your first set of tomatoes out of your greenhouse and you make a sauce out of that, it tastes so much better because there's pride goes into that. It's the same for all of your garden. You just feel this sense of, I mean, I can only get one asparagus to come up at a time. So it's like one asparagus on the plate and that's it. But the sense of like, I've grown that, and that's where we're eating something and it's misshapen and it's a bit kind of, but we need to go back to that, like World War II, dig for victory. And we need that kind of movement and understanding that being able to be self-sufficient in all parts of our lives, all of our parts of lives, we need to start moving towards. We need to stop importing all the fruit and veg that we're importing and filling the fields full of, what's them sun things that capture like?
Sun things capture sunflowers?
No, that you put on the top of roofs.
Solar panels.
Solar panels. Sorry. Don't be a middle-aged woman. This is just brain fog, kind of.
No, I'll make a note of that. It wasn't on my things to do in life was be a middle-aged woman, but I will take your advice there.
Hey, don't do it. It's just, you can describe everything about a thing, and you're going on for 10 minutes describing it, what colour trousers they had on, blonde hair with a big quiff, and, a Versace top on. The name, gone. It's just gone.
Sorry,
carry on.
That's quite all right. Well, thank you for that insight into your garden. I hope you enjoy being green thumbed. And I think, agreed. The autonomy, the taking care of yourself. I think it would be nice to see, as we kind of are sort of movements towards patients' opportunity for self-sufficiency for those that choose to be. That would be something good to sort of see within the space. Question that I've kind of adopted recently, kind of borrowed this from another podcast. Guess is where I stole it from. Anybody? What are we not talking about in the space? What is kind of happening in cannabis that we're not talking about? I know we've obviously covered some of those subjects prior, but what do you think is important that we need to be highlighting?
What we're not talking about. The problem is because I'm so deep in it that I'm talking about everything. And to hit me with what we're not talking about, it is a difficult one. And I think, I think we do need to talk about patient self-sufficiency and allowing patients to do that. But I think we've first got to provide the evidence to the government. This is medicine. This is a viable. This is not a plant of just misuse. But that is something that is regularly talked about. We'll have to come back to that one of what is the real issue that's not being talked about.
Well, there's a good issue. Why aren't we creating data that shows that it's not bad rather than having it show that it's medical?
Well, yeah, the actual...
Do you know what I mean? To try and... Sorry, go on.
The data of the criminality in other countries as well. You know, what is happening to the crime rates within other countries when legalization happens? You know, looking at that, examining that, that's not really been talked about a lot.
There's some interesting, it obviously goes down in a lot of regions, and then after a certain protracted period it starts to go up again. There's gaps in the market that can't be filled in the industry because of strict regulations. The so-called grey market, black market legacy fills that space, and then obviously that starts to give the things that people want, and they then can't innovate in it. It becomes this issue. So that is something interesting. I should probably try and find somebody in American police to try and come on the podcast. That'd be a good conversation.
Or Canadian, somewhere where they've got, or even Malta, all these different countries that have got their different, Uruguay as well. That's another one that's got legalization. Understanding what's actually happening there. This is where it's going to be more interesting in a year's time with Germany, because we're gonna have some data. We're going to be able to say what is actually happening there, what has been the effect of this legislation change and this model that's occurring. You know, it's all about surmising what's going to happen, but what is actually happening?
I think if we can correlate that with neighbouring areas as well to look for divergence. What am I trying to say here? Product getting diverted into other regions and whatever else. I think, it's going to be interesting because basically the Dutch model will come online the year after, as in the results of it. First initial results should be available. I think, when was the Bern trial in Switzerland? I think theirs will be coming on 2026, something like that. So over the next sort of few years, we're going to have this cascade of data sets from quite comparative regions, with them being EC countries. And obviously the data sets are standardized across the EU model in terms of the way that they're read and whatever else. So it will be usable in that sense. So I think, that will be interesting, but I just hope we don't end up with the traditional line from the British politician, which is, that's all well and good, but we need more data in this country.
Yes.
Which is where, which is where I want to see community-driven movements, some more clubs, harm reduction centres, lounges, spaces where their membership signs on to basically creating data sets that prove their proof of concept that, 1,000 people bought X amount of weed and no crime happened at all. Do you know what I mean? This amount went into the local economy, this went here, that went there, but that needs to come as part of like research into home office licenses, which is currently quite difficult to get, but there is a potential pathway there. I'm aware of.
I know what's not being talked about is the side effects of these synthetics, long-term side effects of synthetics.
It's on my notes, but I didn't get a chance to go to it. So we're going to have to get you back sooner rather than later, because there's quite a few more scientific things I would like to discuss with you, which are very much within your remit.
I was very shocked at how many synthetics were out at Prague at Cannafest last year. The amount that was, I was shocked and stunned at the amount that was there. It really did take me back of going, wow, this is everywhere. Because I don't know, have you come across many synthetics in this country at all? Yeah,
quite a few that are slowly appearing here and there. We obviously have the novel psychoactive ban 2018, whatever year it was signed by Theresa May. That up front basically bans them from the point until they're verified. So on that grounds, they're not lawful. But I do know of some CBD producers and others that are the same people that were kind of going, it's less than 0.2, so I'm lawful. And they're selling flowers, etc. They're doing it, and it's a lottery as to whether the police are policing it in their region or not. We are obviously seeing, just as a public service announcement, again, I'm quite aware of the time here, nitazines, it's my fault as well for not getting my schedule together this week, nitazines and other synthetic opioids appearing as well in these things, and it's starting to get scary because we're also getting people now selling infused cannabis. So this is their marketing cannabis flower, they spray on, then cover it with keef and whatever. People are now dyeing the keef. So you're getting blue weed, pink weed, and it's all getting a bit, what the fuck? And they're lawful under like the Hemp Act in America and whatnot. So that innovation, so the industry's going well that way, but just the THC and whatever is so hyper restricted and dangerous. But as you say, hit THCP or whatever, which is like 200 times stronger.
HHC is another one as well, and that's not been talked about enough. I really do think we need to understand these a lot more, because, as I said, I was shocked at how much was available in Prague, and there were just stands and stands and stands full of this stuff, and we do not know what effect it's going to have. Are we going to saturate the endocannabinoid system? Is it going to leave us body in the same way? How are we metabolizing this? What does it get changed into? I mean, there's going to be some information, but the long-term effects of that, what are the long-term effects of this? And then vaping. We don't seem to be talking about the health implications of vaping. Yeah. I was speaking to someone while I was in Germany, I can't remember who it was, and they were talking about a large company who had done some research on what was happening with vaping. Do you know, like, because when you vape a flower, the oil on it doesn't get rid of the waxes that are in there. And like, when hot wax, you put your finger into it and it then coats it. That's what's happening in your lungs sometimes if the temperature's not high enough. So you are inhaling, and then it is like, it's encapsulating it. This is through the vaping. We're not talking about that as well.
And if that's a lower temperature than combusting the correct breaking down the correct cannabinoids, you're not going to get the lung protection, the bronchial dilatory effects, and anything that would offset. Yeah, there's also like the molds and whatever. So you've just right. You need to go to your meeting shortly.
Sorry.
What we're going to do, start of summer, I'm going to drag you back here. We're both going to pull some papers together, and I think we'll do a public service announcement for all. I'm very limited on social media and whatnot online. I think it's worth doing. Let's talk about these things with vaporization, because that was something that's on here. The same with synthetics and kind of these processes by which that they convert like CBD biomass into these different things. I think people would be very interested to know the science and the background of this, and I think you're a perfect person for it. So if you'd be willing, I'd like to see you back here in the start of summer.
And how we can, how they're converting terpenes into CBD. And into these compounds, where they're starting off with a completely different compound, and it's turning into.
When they're doing it with orange peel was a big one. There's Peel's company, and they've trademarked their extraction process. There's another one I saw with obviously modified yeasts. But Ed Rosenthal, me and him had a little bit of a disagreement on the podcast about the future of them. E. coli is another one that is basically programmable. That's where we got like, I don't know what we call it these days. Aspartame was the old sort of name. But you can modify the waste of that and feed this bacteria en masse, and the waste will produce cannabinoids. So yeah, I think we should have those conversations, because I think people would be greatly interested. For people that want to know, where can they keep up with sort of yourself? Where are you available online? If you're available online at all, you might not be.
I try. I find online, and not to be. It's not a waste of time. It takes up time, and I find so much more pleasure from getting my hands in the muck in my garden. But Instagram is probably the best place. I'm on LinkedIn. Don't really use any of Facebooks, but I'm old. I'm over 40, so that's where we all gather, in those kind of old boring places. Don't do any of Discords or any of those.
I don't. I'm too old for Discord. I think I can't understand it. Can't wrap my head. But no, excellent. Okay, I might include a link or two below then. Thank you again for your time. I really appreciated it. I'll let you get off now, and I'll be in touch, and we'll book another date in to do that sort of synthetics and vaping special.
Yeah, that would be great. And thank you for pushing me outside my comfort zone. You always do. It's not that I disagree with what you say. I think I see what is possible in the world we live in now. And that's where we have to keep communicating, so that we both remind each other and pull and sort of centralize, I think, one another to what we can really achieve.
Yeah, and I hope this podcast has been an element to show people that we can have these amicable disagreements and respectfully disagree. And ultimately, I will, as I always said, I will support you on every station up on the journey, as long as people are aware that their station isn't the end destination. So yeah, once again, thank you very much for your time. I'll let you get off to your meeting. I'll do some housekeeping, and I'll speak to you probably in a couple of days, actually. I'll see how you're doing, how your garden's getting on. But all right, take it easy. Thank you for jumping in the hot seat.
You too, mate. Take it easy.
Peace and love. Bye. Well, there you go, folks. That was Dr. Callie Seaman. I hope you enjoyed that conversation. I know I did. It was a bit short this week. I seem to be getting my diary management pretty poor with the past few weeks episodes. I got the time zone wrong. the week before, which meant we lost the hour that I thought we had extra to record. And yeah, I had to push back today because I was helping somebody else with something, which meant I lost the extra time I wanted with Callie today. But I think we're all going to benefit from getting her back on in the not too distant future to discuss these synthetics, the conversion mechanisms, and as we were just sort of discussing there, the other ways by which they are making cannabinoids, which are lawful. I mean, in this country, synthetic CBD, for people that don't know, is considered a pure cannabinoid, which is the same as a plant-derived isolate. So the law creates a space for these loosely air quotes innovations to exist. And I think, yeah, as we were discussing there at the end, the consequences and the potential consequences and what we're already seeing and what is projected could potentially be quite concerning. So yeah, we will be back to get that together before too long. So yeah, check out Callie and a few of the links that I've included below. I just wanted to check with that question at the end there that she is public. Don't want to, plaster people's social media links if they are not, wanting people to sort of reach out to them if they so wish to do so. Yeah, it's a shame. I got loads of notes for today's episode, but yeah, we got stuck on the first few. I say got stuck. We had some really good conversations on the first few topics there, and I think again, I hope this stands as a testament to the fact that regardless of where you are, I hate the idea of the fence. So this, let's call it a spectrum of cannabis advocation. Yeah, that's a good way of describing it. We can disagree, we can have these conversations, but ultimately still have that mutual respect and that mutual desire to see, a better world and an end of criminalization. We may just disagree about the means by which we get it, but as I sort of stated there at the end, as long as the trajectory and the end goal, as it were, which may, be some abstract moment in the future, as long as that is there and people are willing to work towards that, then each of these stopways along the way will be felt by everybody as a victory, rather than at the minute what it feels like to quite a lot of the legacy culture members is this industry is built upon the foundations of their continued suffering, of the continuation of the criminalization of their lives, of the lack of participation of them within the industry or the wider society, which I think is a detriment to, frankly, all of the world. I think if the tens of hundreds of millions of people that consume cannabis around the world were able to participate in this global system, to be able to be their true, wonderful, weird, beautiful selves, that everybody and everything would benefit. So yeah, that's my vision, that's my future, and fuck, I'm gonna be sat here, God, I'll be in VR and hologram doing episode like fucking 5,000, going, well, we still need to get this law sorted. But yeah, hopefully not. Maybe I can take some optimism from what Callie said and believe, as I try to, and I do, in people like Callie, that they are trying to do the right things in the space. So in that sense, I guess, yeah, more power to him. More power to him. Yeah, hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed this. Quite short podcast this week. So yeah, hope you really enjoyed this, folks. If you did, please do give us a like, a share, subscribe, a thumbs up, a rating, a star, whatever it is you do on whatever platform it is that you are using to enjoy this little podcast. Then yeah, please do show your appreciation. I greatly appreciate you for doing so. If you really enjoy this podcast, do check us out on patreon.com/Simpa Life, where for less than a cup of coffee a week, you can help me keep the lights on this little project of mine. All right, you've been wonderful. Oh, actually, yeah, check out the website. There will be more stuff coming online. I'm looking at a software at the minute to try and transcribe previous episodes and sort of break them down into interview formats at the minute. So there should be some of that stuff coming up onto the website in the coming weeks and months once I get my head around more technology. But you guys know me, I can barely get this running. So yeah, fingers crossed I'll be able to solve that dilemma of mine and get moving forward. Any suggestions? Welcome in the comments below. All right, I'll not keep you much longer. We will be back next week with, I don't know, somebody. It'll be awesome. You'll love it. All right, take it easy, folks. Peace and love.